Hi. India is going through a certain level of economic slowdown. Most of us know about it, but it is also something which is happening globally. And since no country these days is operating in isolation, it has connections through trade. With the outside world, we're all affected when one country or two countries or three countries that are big enough to cast some kind of an impact on other countries is affected. So this is pretty much what is happening to which is pretty much is happening to the global economic scene these days. Now, how do you find that a country is going through a certain level of economic slowdown? Even if you're, as I said, not into completely connected to economics, you'll feel that there is a certain lull when you go to the markets. There isn't much buzz in the markets. Moreover, you see more and more people looking out for jobs, not getting them. Some people who already had jobs, they're losing it or they're given ultimatums. And that's happening because the enterprises are folding up. They are not able to withstand the changes in the market. They're losing profits. They're not getting enough capital to run the show, or there isn't much demand in the economy. Now that's about private sector, but public sector isn't much different. Here's some illustration to put across my point. Whether a private enterprise or a public enterprise, it has certain stages. It goes through certain stages. And you can call it life cycle of an enterprise. It would launch itself, it would grow, then it would shake out at the time when things are a little unpredictable. So this is the stage of the survival of the fittest. So if you're fit to survive in the market, you will. And then you will reach the maturity stage. At some point in time, you would also decline. So what people try to do, who are the entrepreneurs, they'll try to keep away from this stage for as long as they can. Now, if you feel, why aren't public investments done when the economy is down, is slowing down? That's because the government doesn't have much revenues to invest into something else. Government augments revenues through basically majorly from two sources: taxes and non-tax sources. Now you know that the taxes are of direct and indirect type. Direct would be levied on the income and indirect would be on goods and services. Now this comprises 50% of the revenues that the government generates in India. Whereas non-tax revenue, this is just an example, is the fine and the penalties that are levied on the offenders of the law, and also by the revenue that is generated by PSUs in case they generate profit. That's when the employments would be generated. If PSUs are performing well, that's when they can keep themselves afloat. Now the amount of money or revenue that non-tax revenue sources contribute to the total revenue of the government, according to the information that is available in the public domain, is around 20 to 25%. Now, if you delve a little deeper, you'll find that not all PSUs are performing well. So we are talking only about this bit, the non-tax revenue. Not every offender is fined and asked to give a penalty, which they should be, like mobs just destroying public property in recent past were fined, which is a great way. In fact, it should have been done long back to all people who damaged the public property. There are other offenders as well. So this system has to be tightened up. As far as PSUs are concerned, we're just talking about this, why the government is not able to extract more revenue from this particular source. I'm just concentrating on this one. As for the PSUs, we have PSUs like the ones that are dealing in oil, that is petrol, power, coal, and all such heavy electronics, they are profit making. They are profit making units. These are the units that are into exploitation of Earth's resources, and it's good that only government is allowed in the field. Whereas we have other PSUs like the BSNL, MTNL, and Air India. That's a loss making, and there are many of such sort that are loss making units. Now if you see, most of the private units get wiped out from the market at the growth stage because they are not able to hold their ground with the unpredictability going on, with the capital crunch that's going on, with the doused aggregate demand. So they usually get wiped out at this stage itself. Whereas public sector units, they get wiped out, or they face heavy losses at this stage, that is the maturity stage. Now why do they face losses at the maturity stage? For that, let's go on. Let's zoom in a little bit on each of these stage. You launch yourself, that's the time when you put your money together, and then offer your services or goods. Growth is the time when you try to establish yourself, try to expand your market share. Shakeout is the time when you try to stand your ground at certain unpredictable stages in the market. Maturity is the one when no amount of marketing will heavily change your sales. So there is a certain stagnation that comes at the time of maturity, and you have so many competitors offering better quality stuff, better quality goods and services, and at a lower price. So you have your market share shrinks, and of course, and then you decline or fold up. So this is what it is. So usually the public sector units decline at the maturity stage, and the reason why you feel that the reason why you feel that maturity stage should be what should I say? Should prove to be a turning point for the public sector units is because of the lack of innovation. Most public sector units are not consistent in their innovation, which is why they are not able to provide better quality services, diversified services, which is pretty much the case with Bharat Sanchar Nigam. Once the telephone was out and you had many more networks providing cellular services and internet services, they had a lot of pressure of keeping their prices low, and therefore the losses were great. And so is the case with Air India. Since the rise in the fuel prices and many other costs that it incurs. However, their prices had to be kept low because there were other cheap airlines services, cheaper in the sense more economical airline services that were in the market. So therefore, what's lacking in all public sector units is the innovation. All innovation requires some money. But is money so easy to get? No. Government has 3 sources to augment money: from by printing money, then but you can't print a lot of money, otherwise you'll end up creating a lot of inflation in the country. Then by taking debts internally. The government already has a lot of debt to take care of, to repay. As for the external borrowing, it has, we after 1991-92, we have a certain limit to which we follow. That limit, we don't let the external borrowings increase hell of a lot, so which is good as well. So as it is, let's just say the government has a lot of money to pay back, and therefore if it augments, if it has to inject money into loss making PSUs, all it will get is more losses. Now here, I just didn't make this video just to talk about the things that are the state of affair, or the factual bits. I do have certain things that cross my mind when I think about PSUs. If you've visited state-run enterprises, you'll find there is a lot of laxity in the way people work there. And while you're going through the passageway of any PSU that are not big like Indian Oil or some big other big PSU, you're going through some government office of a beta city, you'll find that place is really lacking in discipline. You don't find people in place for a long time, and you are waiting for them. I'll talk about two suggestions that I have to put forth. I want to put forth few suggestions. If there are takers somewhere in the universe, they'll take it and I'll be happy. If there are not, I still put my thoughts across. I just want to put it out there, and that is that there should be a swipe card for every government employee or every employee of a PSU, so that they don't leave their department very often, for as long, for however times, how many, if they leave their place for many times, that would be recorded, and that should be it. The second point that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about something. Oh yeah, it seems that a lot of money is going to retain the manpower which is not very productive in PSUs. Now I feel, and I spoke about it in one of my videos done earlier, that instead of retaining people for 8 hours, they should be made to work in shifts. In that way, you will be employing more people, and none of these employees get to spend the entire day doing very little. In fact, their remuneration should also be cut to half, and the next shift's person would get the rest of the payment. Because this is really not an exaggeration. There's so many public government offices where people sit at one place, not being very productive. So a shift system should start, a swipe card system should start. In fact, if you see the Pentagon, you'll see, if you've seen the building of Pentagon, you'll see that there are many departments in a certain and in different buildings. So if the whole building is not connected, in fact there are very many small buildings, each taking care of a certain department, I feel that should be a more efficient way, so that you just don't flee at any given point in the day to some other department. And in that way, it would be really easy for the overseer or somebody at a higher position to see which department is working the best, which department is most hygienic and systematic, and so on. So I guess this is one bit I thought about today, and I wanted to share. Bye.